A decade ago in June 2013, Magic the Gathering released its first Masters set in paper with Modern Masters. It was made with the general idea that since the Modern format was growing, they needed to address the concerns that there wasn't quite the card pool to it. Players didn't quite have the access to all of the cards that they needed. Also, since WotC can't legally address the secondary market when it comes to Magic the Gathering, it's probably fair to say behind closed doors, they looked at it and said, hey, this card sells for $100, we can put it in a pack that sells for $6, and we only have to pay like a quarter to make that pack. It's just easy marketing there. But now we're in 2023 and we have Commander Masters. Has Commander Masters addressed the problem of card availability? I think it does in some cases, but there's a lot of trash to go through here. So let's look at Commander Masters' biggest misses. I sourced this information from EDHREC's ranking of cards. Essentially, if a card shows up more often in lists, it has a higher rank. Surely, if a card has a higher rank, it has a high demand, so it should be showing up in this set. I also only looked at rares and mythics because I feel like commons and uncommons or whatever. I'll start off with some honorable mentions. Righteous Confluence and Verdant Confluence both would make this list, but I chose to take them off it. They're here because they're part of a larger cycle. So they were included because Magic often feels the need to include full cycles of cards, so these aren't here because WotC thought people played them, they're here because the blue and red ones get played, and WotC likes being cute. My other honorable mentions are Sun Quan and Loyal Retainers. They don't get run that often, but that's because they've been printed so little that there really aren't enough of them out there, and they're just too expensive. Either way, these both act as barriers to people playing them in their decks, and I think they're solid additions to this set. So let's begin with number 10, Ashling the Pilgrim. This might actually come with a bit of surprise for most people, but this card doesn't get played that much. This card definitely has a cult following that probably peaked about 5 years ago. You could probably walk into any sizable LGS and find at least one person that had a deck for it. The problem is, if you're playing this card just for value and you're running it in the 99, it gets outclassed by so many other cards. And that means if you're playing it to actually do combo or value plays with it, you should probably run it in the command zone. And being restricted to just good as a commander means it doesn't get played that often. It also probably doesn't help that in the last half a decade, there have been a ton more valuable, powerful red commanders that have come out. Next up is number 9, Experiment Crash. Viewer, I was as surprised as you were. I'm guessing you're surprised by this. If not, this makes this kind of awkward. I think Experiment Crash falls into a similar area as Ashling. The card is definitely a build around me card. This card needs to be in the command zone to actually be used to its full potential, which then straight up limits how many decks it can really go into. This one surprised me just because it feels kind of close to home. I've played with 2 playgroups in my lifetime. The first playgroup I played with was just a bunch of friends from my high school. We grew up together. One of my best friends, Alex, he has Experiment Crash, he loves that deck. And as I've gotten more involved in the Magic community, I started playing Spell Table Magic with a group of guys, a group of Hexproof Harry's friends, and Mr. Badger in that group runs Experiment Crash as well. I feel like this is definitely one of those cards that has a cult following. But one card I don't think deserves that title of cult classic is number 8, Solortha Strength Incarnate. Now I think this card kind of gets into this set just to make it a draftable environment. There needs to be as many options at Legend as possible to make sure you can actually play what deck you want to run. But there are 30 Gruul options better than this card. Honestly, I think this card only got printed because it's never been printed before. That might seem like a weird statement, let's backtrack a bit. Solortha comes from Ikoria and was actually the buy a box promo. This is back when buy a box promos weren't actually in the set itself, so you couldn't crack packs and also get one. If you remember Ikoria as well, this set was actually full of Godzilla crossovers, so the original Solortha was a Godzilla crossover, but there was never the original with the original art. The original did come out for digital clients, but this is the first printing in paper. Cool story, this card still sucks. I'm not surprised it doesn't see play. Next card is number 7, Ruins of Oren Reef. I don't know what I'm more surprised by. This card's actually in this set, or that there are 6 cards that get played less than this in this set. It's probably only here because one of the precons cares about colorless cards, and this just happens to mention colorless, but really that shouldn't be enough for this to get printed. It enters tapped, it only taps for a colorless, and it only gives a really minor buff if you jump through a hoop. When does this card start to get good? Next card is number 6, Perilous Vault. It's kind of funny to see colorless cards on this list because it's like you have no excuse for being bad. Some cards you can make the excuse, well, it's a certain color, it's a certain color combination, so only a niche part of the Magic the Gathering experience can even play that. But no, colorless you can play whenever. This card can get played wherever and people just decide not to. It's a worse Nev's disc, but Nev's disc at least has the decency to have been printed into the dirt and is really cheap. Next card's number 5, Gideon Jura. Gideon is an interesting planeswalker for several reasons. He has a unique combination of abilities that I feel like are often imitated but never duplicated. And there's a reason for never duplicated. There's a few things planeswalkers should be able to do. One of those things is protect itself. That first ability is the exact opposite. I also feel like it's important to note that we live in a world with goad now. If we were going to have something similar to Gideon's first ability, we'd just do goad. Number 4 is Sublime Exhale. Personally, I speculate that this card only got printed in this set because whoever was making this set just went, oh, it's got that keyword that we used in the commander set, yeah, just throw it in there. I like the design of this keyword, but best case scenario, this card is just an easier to cast Wrath of God. That really isn't good enough. Your ceiling is really low, but then your floor is extremely low. If you're one of the last 2 people at the table and you have this card in hand, it now costs 6 to cast a board wipe. Most 6-mana board wipes can at least do something to avoid your board. Great situation you've really painted yourself into. Number 3 is Harsh Mercy. As a fan of white cards in Magic the Gathering, it really disappoints me that there are 3 in a row. I think there are a couple reasons why this card ranks so high here. For one, before Commander Masters, this card was only in Onslaught. This card wasn't exactly breaking the bank for players, but it's just not a recent enough set. It's not in people's memories. It's not in people's collections. So people aren't just going to randomly include it. It also doesn't help that Onslaught has allied colored fetches, so packs go for like $70. People just didn't know this card existed. The second part is, it's not that great. It's the perfect Mario Party type card. This is a new term I'm coining. It's great at doing something poorly, and a lot of times it does it poorly for the sake of chaos, or this is just a social format, this gets people talking. But at the end of the day, it's a 3-mana board wipe that your opponents can still protect their best cards. I'd rather just pay 1 extra white mana for Wrath of God. Down to number 2, we have Seccar Deathkeeper. This is the 19th most played Jund commander in Magic the Gathering. I feel like they had to go out of their way to make a bad choice here. I get that they don't really want to fill Commander Masters with just good cards that have come out within the last 5 years, and of the 18 Jund commanders ahead of it, almost half of them have come out in the last 5 years. But even then, put Prosh here, put Lord Windgrace here, put Kresh here. Hell, even put the Shatter Gang brothers here. Sure, all these cards have been reprinted more recently, but they're at least getting played. Alright, and number 1, the biggest miss in all of Commander Masters is, drumroll please, Sakiko, Mother of Summer. That can't be right. This card rocks. I get that it's a bit of a win more card. If you are already punching through a bunch of damage and generating a ton of mana, you're already winning. So why do you need to make all that mana already? But still, this is the first card that I genuinely feel like I don't know what it's doing here. And sure, it's not a commonly played commander, but it makes me sad to even look at it that out of the 1.3 million possible decks that could run this card in commander, only 2,000 decks actually do. I don't think it's necessarily a miss that WotC has put a card that people don't play into this set, but I do think it's a really niche choice for WotC to make, and I really enjoy it. This card should honestly be in most, if not all, green decks. I hope if you take anything away from this video, to run this card. I really am puzzled. WotC's biggest miss was its biggest hit. So, Commander Masters. I know a lot of people are puzzled by it and don't like it. I'm not crazy for the set as a whole, but I like what it brings to the table. At the end of the day, this is a set for whales to drop a bunch of money on, so all the staples in the format drop for the rest of us, and then we can get in, build decks really cheaply. And if Magic can become more affordable, I think that's better for the game. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to bolt your birds.